Hello and welcome to the Motor City Sports Podcast, your home for discussing our Detroit sports. I am your host, Lee Moserak, and as always, I want to thank all of you for joining me today as we go on this wacky little adventure. As I've said before, my goal with this podcast is to discuss things in kind of a positive way. We want to discuss our Detroit sports in a fun way, meaning this stuff is supposed to be fun. This stuff isn't supposed to ruin our day. We aren't supposed to be looking for things to be upset about for no good reason. So does that mean we're going to lie and make things up to be positive about? No, we're going to be realistic, but we're not just going to look for that negative clickbait headline for the sake of doing it. We want to make this as fun as possible. And in 2025, I think it's pretty easy to do that when discussing our Detroit sports. So, plan for today is we're going to start out by talking about the Tigers, kind of review the last week of the Tigers and what's happened. Admittedly, spoiler alert, hasn't been great, but that's okay. We can still find a few things to point out in the positive and look forward to the future. We're also going to dive into the All-Star game of next week. So, the game and the Home Run Derby, look at the different lineups and compare it to lineups of the past. And then we'll wrap up today's show with kind of a bit of a rapid fire, a few different topics that are affecting our Detroit sports. So that's the plan for today. Later in the week on Thursday's episode, we'll recap the All-Star game, we'll recap the Home Run Derby, and we'll preview the next weekend for the Tigers. After a couple of weeks here, we're going to start throwing in some interviews, likely on that Thursday show. The second half of the Thursday shows will likely be interviews here pretty soon once we kind of get things rolling. So before we get started today, though, I need to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Grosse Pointe Spine Center, where they use non-surgical spinal decompression with the DRX 9000 to treat patients suffering from chronic neck pain, chronic back pain, sciatica, caused by herniated discs, bulging discs, and degenerative disc disease. If you're in the Metro Detroit area and you're in need of pain relief, call them at 313-332-0388 or visit online at grossepointspinecenter.com. All right, without any further ado, let's get into today's topic. So starting off, our lovely Detroit Tigers. What did the last week look like? We're going to recap last Sunday through Saturday, July 12th. As I record this, it is Sunday afternoon. The Tigers are currently winning 2-1 against the Mariners, and then I turned it off to get the recording. So I'm hoping that when I hit stop on this recording, the game hasn't flipped somehow, and we're going into the All-Star break getting swept by the Mariners. So we're going to think happy thoughts. Tigers are doing well and winning. But as far as the last week goes, I have to admit, I'm the guy that tries to keep things positive, but it was a 3-3 week, and it was kind of a tough 3-3 week. So we started off the week last Sunday while I was recording was that game against the Guardians. Now it's a little over a week ago. Maybe you've forgotten, but that was the Tarek Skubal game. Tarek pitched great through 7 innings, gave up no runs, 10 strikeouts, no walks. Just a wonderfully dominant game. Relievers come in, give up 1 run. Tigers are down 1-0 in that 9th inning. Torque gets hit by a pitch, ends up on first base with 1 out. They pinch run for Torque, throw Zach McKinstry in there. Zach steals second, gets to third on a ground ball. And now we've got a runner on third base, and we've got 2 outs. Class A on the mound. Looks like the Guardians are in good position to get the win, but Benetti did say something on the telecast that, hey, a pass ball gets us a tie. And sure enough, a ball just a little too low, squeaks through the 5-hole there, trickles away. Zach's able to get down the line, score that tying run to put us into at least the bottom of the 9th inning and then eventually into extra innings where the Tigers kind of busted it open. Recap, Trey Sweeney gets that 3-run home run to put us up 4-1. Vierling doubles to put us up 5-1. And then Riley Green cements the win with a 2-run homer, putting us up 7-1. We win that game 7-2. So great start to the week. Tarek didn't get the win, but when Tarek pitches, we're usually in a good position to win. So that was a great start to the week. We roll into the next day. That Monday game against the Rays, we win 5-1. And it's a great game. Montero pitches 6 innings. We get a great bullpen effort. Everyone from the bullpen comes in to shut down. The only run that the Rays got was that 1 run against Montero. Baez, Colt, and Zemak all hit home runs. That's a great game. So we're 2-0 on the week. And then we come to game 2 against the Rays. I was actually at that game down Tuesday night. Jack Flaherty on the mound. I think I've been to 4 Jack Flaherty games this year. It almost seems like if he's pitching at home, I'm there. But he goes just over 6 innings, does a great job. Bullpen comes in, another great job by the bullpen, really shuts the game down. We get a torque bomb that game. We get another home run from Colt Keith, and we get 2 runs scored by Zach McKinstry. So we're now 3-0 on the week, looking like we're heading in strong to the All-Star game. We go to game 3 against the Rays. Unfortunately, we don't pull that one off. We lose 7-3. Reese Olson gets the start, pitches well. A little bit shaky in the first inning or so, but he goes 5 innings, only gives up 2 runs. Has us in position to win. We were down 2-0, battled back in the 4th inning to go up 3-2. Reese leaves the game with the lead, and unfortunately, just one of those games for Chase Lee. Gives up 4 runs, uncharacteristic, but it's going to happen. These relievers don't have 0.00 ERAs. They're going to get banged up from time to time. The week before, it was Tommy Kahnle. Then he came back his next outing or two and looked great. So that game this past week, Chase Lee, not so great. Hoping, that he can battle back as we move forward. But another spoiler alert, we do have another struggling outing down the road. So unfortunately, bullpen kind of implodes there, gives up a bunch of runs. Tigers lose 7-3. So we're 3-1 on the week. Moving forward into Friday, just a rough game. Rough game. Tarek Skubal gets the start, so you think we're in prime position to get the win. Goes 5 innings, 5 real tough innings. He really battled. You can tell right away he didn't have his stuff. First pitch strikes were terrible. Usually he's, up 0-1 on every hitter he faces. And a lot of 1-0 counts, a lot of 2-0 counts. Actually ends up walking 2 people, which is strange. Only 5 strikeouts in 5 innings, which sounds silly. Only 5 strikeouts. But for him, we're looking at usually 10 strikeouts, 1 walk. And for it to be 5-2, just not great. Gives up 4 runs in 5 innings. Bullpen comes in. Hannafy does okay. Holton unfortunately gives up that tough home run to Cal Raleigh. That ball was 6 inches to a foot in the other batter's box, and Cal just muscles it out. And then we get Hernandez comes in. Real bad outing for him, unfortunately. Herder comes in. Another bad outing. So it started out being down 4-1. Battled back to make it 4-3, and then that bullpen implosion again just puts the game totally out of reach, and we end up losing 12-3. So real tough outing. We'll talk a little bit why that might have been here in a minute. And then finally the Saturday game, another rough game. Casey Mize gets the start. Before then, he's 9-3 on the year. ERA hasn't been above 3 the whole year, so we think, all right, he's a stopper. We'll bounce back here. He only gets 3 innings. Then Cater Montero comes in, who's been great lately. Only gets 3 innings, gives up 3 runs. Chase Lee comes in with a chance to kind of bounce back from earlier in the week when he gave up the 4 runs. Doesn't even get an entire inning, gives up 2 runs. And then the real disappointing part of that day was Tommy Kahnle comes in and gives up 4 runs and doesn't even record an out. So that's tough to see. The team really needs Tommy Kahnle and Will Vest to be super strong to continue moving forward and have a real successful year. Now, I'm the one that always says, hey, these guys aren't perfect every time. Getting hit here or there is going to happen. But that's 2 outings in about a week and a half for Tommy Kahnle, so that's a little scary. Hopefully that's nothing that's serious, nothing that sticks around, because we need him to bounce back. We need him to kind of be that shutdown guy to kind of get the 7th or 8th inning on lockdown, so then Will can come in at the end of the game and really solidify that save. So don't like to see him giving up 4 runs. One thing you can say is by the time he gave up 4 runs, that game was over. And so kind of the the Friday night game, I was thinking, all right, whatever, we'll throw it away. Tarek isn't himself. Bullpen implodes. No real offensive production. I'd rather all the bad stuff kind of happen in one game so we don't waste something good. But then the Saturday game, it's like the offense scores 7 runs. Starter can't get to the 4th inning. First reliever can't give up less than 3 runs. And it just kind of got worse and worse as we went down the road there. Moving along from there, we've got kind of what did the team look like through the week? So far, we're 3-3 on the week. Again, there's a game going on right now. And so we'll get to that in a little bit here. But 3-3 on the week. Not great. What about the individual performances? Well, Colt Keith, just like the week before, kind of the standout. 8 for 22, 364 batting average on the week, and he gets 2 home runs. He continues to really be a great guy in that leadoff position. When you look at Colt Keith, doesn't seem like that traditional leadoff hitter, but the way that AJ runs this team now, it makes total sense. We just want a guy that's going to get on base. We don't need the guy that's stealing bases, that's getting doubles, stretching doubles into triples. Colt Keith's going to get a lot of hits. He's going to see a lot of pitches, and he's going to hit a home run every now and again. So it makes a lot of sense for the way this offense is going. Zach McKinstry, pretty good week, which is great. Lines up with his all-star nod. He's 5 for 16, 313 on the week for a batting average. Gets a home run, gets a few stolen bases, quite a few runs scored, so that was great. The only other offensive kind of thing that kind of stuck out as positive is Wenzel Perez was 6 for 22, equates to about a 272 batting average. So in today's baseball, a 272 average is pretty good for the week. Home runs were also hit by Riley Green, Torque, and Javi, but not a lot of offensive production. We get 2 home runs from Colt and a 364 batting average, but nothing else really jumps out. And that could help explain how there's a 3-3 week for a team that's 20 plus games above 500. So going 500 in a week isn't common for them. But when you see this little offensive production, makes sense. As far as pitching goes, Skubal did have 2 starts on the week, total of 12 innings, 4 runs, no wins, 1 loss on the week. Montero had 9 innings from 2 different appearances, gives up 4 runs. Everyone else kind of just had an inning here or there with the bullpen or just 1 start as far as pitching goes. Not a great week. I can admit it. I'm the guy that likes to be positive about everything. 3-3 on the week isn't what we love to see. Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize had that weird situation at the end of the week. It seems like the Tigers moved up Tarek's start to put him in position to start the All-Star game. Remember, he started last Sunday. He's been starting about every 6 days. They don't really do 5-day rotations anymore. It's kind of 6 days. And if there's 6 games in that 6 days, they bring someone up or they do a bullpen day. Tarek would have been scheduled to start on Saturday. Casey would have been scheduled to get that Friday start. And they seem to have flipped him to give Tarek a chance to start in the All-Star game, which, look ahead, it worked. He's scheduled to start the All-Star game, but at what cost? These guys are such creatures of habit. Tarek was just on the national game the week before talking about what his week is like in between starts. And he made the point of saying how there's 6 days between starts. And here's what he does on start day. Here's what he does the day after, the day after, the day after. The entire week, he has a very specific routine for each of those days. So you remove one of those days, that's going to change the way he prepares for a game. And I think that really showed on Friday. He struggled. He wasn't his normal self. I put a post out at some point during the game that said he's struggling, still better than 90% of baseball, but it's obviously not our normal Tarek Skubal. So I think that is what we can write off kind of Friday to. And then maybe the opposite happened with Casey, where suddenly now he has an extra day in between starts, maybe threw his routine off a little bit because Casey's ERA is now above 3 for the first time the entire season. That game was really out of character for him. It almost seems like flipping those 2 guys' starts really hurt both of them, and that's unfortunate. I get it. We're going to have Tarek Skubal starting the All-Star game, which is great, but it may have cost us a game or 2 in the process. But like I always say, we're going to lose a game. There's 162 of these games. We're not winning 162 and losing 0. We're not winning 150 and losing 12. If we win 100 games and lose 62, that is a heck of a season. And we're still on pace to basically do that. We're still 20 plus games above 500, still the best record in all of baseball, still 10 or 11 games up on the AL Central. Team's still fine, just not the way you kind of want to limp into the All-Star break here on what we're doing. One other thing about the Tigers is a bit of trade talk buzzing around. The things you hear often are third base and relief pitcher. I really hope we're putting the third base nonsense to rest. Any talk of removing Zach McKinstry from the role that he's got on this team is nonsense and should not be taken seriously. I don't want to hear trading Zach for a piece. No. I don't want to hear moving Zach to another position. Yeah, he can play shortstop when needed. He can play outfield when needed, but he's locked down that third base. That we don't need a third baseman anymore. We don't need Bregman or any of these other guys that are floating out there as possible names to come in. He's fine there. We've got Javi at shortstop. He's fine there now. We don't need to move those guys around anymore. So I really hope that the front office has just abandoned all third base talk. Like, our third baseman is an all-star. We don't need to do anything else about that. So is he an all-star only because he's a third baseman? No. But Zach McKinstry is our third baseman, and Zach McKinstry is an all-star. Leave it alone. If he needs a breather, we've got Vierling that can come in. We've got Colt Keith that can move over there. So we've got some defensive flexibility. But thinking about moving away from Zach McKinstry is a horrible idea. And anyone in sports media that suggests it should not be listened to. And I really hope that includes our front office not listening to them. Other than that, we hear a lot about it as a relief pitcher. That's probably needed. Tommy Kahnle, the last 2 of the last 3 outings, not so great, but for the most part, Tommy Kahnle, Will Vest, great. Tyler Holton, when he's on, great. Herder and Chase Lee, both when they're on, can be pretty great. But it's still a little shaky. You still get a little nervous when we turn that over to the bullpen. Our overall team ERA is still great. Bullpen ERA is by no means the bottom 10 percentile of the Major League Baseball. It's still fine, but we don't have a lot of strikeout guys, which really come in handy in the postseason. There, I saw one talk of Chapman being the big name that might be a potential trade target. I don't know what they're going to do there, but that's one position I wouldn't mind them adding an arm, depending at what cost. Again, I don't want to trade Zach McKinstry to get an arm. I don't want to trade one of these guys that are current active players and what we're doing in Detroit on the Tigers to just get some arm for a year. That's not what I want. So if there's a way we can make some moves, it's tough, right? We're not going to give up Clark or McGonigal or any of those studs in the minor league system. But maybe there's a way that we can get that relief pitcher in that can give us some innings, that can give us some secure innings and get strikeouts when needed. Okay, center fielder is probably the other spot where we might see some motion, see some action. And that's not so much because we need a center fielder. We've got Parker, we've got Vierlin, we've got Javi Baez, who's an all-star center fielder. But I think the talk around center field is more so that Parker Meadows hasn't been the player we wanted him to be. Now, as I said on a podcast last week, when Parker Meadows is in that lineup, the team's phenomenal. Look at the team's record last year in games including Parker Meadows and games not including Parker Meadows. Team started out real strong beginning of the year. Parker wasn't doing great, but the team was awesome. Parker goes down to Toledo, team starts to get cold. We at trade deadline, we're sending players away, we're sellers, we're wrapping things up, thinking the season's over. We bring Parker back up from the Toledo along with some young guys. Team gets hot, team goes on a run. So when you look at the record for the team with Parker Meadows versus without, it shows he's important. This year, unfortunately, though, Parker's just, injured beginning of the year. Tigers do great. And then he comes back, just hasn't quite found his swing. I still love him in center field. I would love for him to figure this out, get his swing back, whatever he's got to work on. Maybe he has to go down to Toledo for a little bit, kind of figure it out again and come back. But we can't have him hitting below 200 with the increased strikeouts. That's not going to help us come the end of the year. So I've seen some talk of potentially using Parker Meadows as a trade piece, trading him to get maybe the reliever, knowing that we've got Vierling and even potentially Javi or some other combination of players we can do for center field, but maybe Parker Meadows is an asset someone else wants. I'm torn on that. I really love keeping the guys that have been here all along. I hate seeing a guy that's been an important part of the growth of this team then just be used as trade bait and not get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. I know that's reality and that has to happen. Guys get moved, guys get traded. I get it. I'm not a child. I understand that. I just don't love it. It's one part of the game I don't enjoy seeing. I'd rather see a world in which Parker Meadows can continue to be a productive part of this team. So that means Parker Meadows needs to figure out a swing, needs to start making solid contact. And I believe he can do it because he did it last year. So hopefully we don't need to get rid of anything or need to fill in any position players, anything in the lineup. Maybe just the relievers. Maybe just that bullpen needs a little strengthening. Maybe that means getting Alex Lang back, but I saw he just had a setback last week. So, So again, we might need to go out and find something, but really, relief pitchers is the only thing I'm really that interested in going after. So that's my take on the Detroit Tigers for right now. After the break, we're going to dive into the All-Star game. So what do we have coming up? We've got the AL versus the NL. We've got the All-Star game on Tuesday. We've got the Home Run Derby on Monday. So we're going to do a little bit of previewing of that when we return to the Motor City Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the Motor City Sports Podcast, everyone. I am your host, Lee Mosrak, and thank you all for being with us today. In the first part of today's show, we talked about the Detroit Tigers. We recapped the last week where they won 3 games, lost 3 games, and are currently playing the Mariners on Sunday afternoon as I record this. So hopefully they finish off with a win and we don't go into the All-Star break on a 4-game losing streak. So this part of the podcast this week, I want to talk about the All-Star game, talk about the Home Run Derby. So tomorrow, or I guess tonight, as this podcast is released, we're going to have the Home Run Derby. 8 gentlemen going out there battling to see who is supreme and who is going to win. So you've got Jazz Chisholm of the Yankees, Junior Caminero, Matt Olson, Byron Buxton, Brent Rooker, James Wood, O'Neill Cruz, and of course, Cal Raleigh. So when I look at these names, Cal Raleigh jumps out, obviously. He's having a season everyone knows about. He's got 38 home runs. As I record this, I hope he hasn't hit number 39 against the Tigers today. but just on a tear. Some people are projecting him as a potential MVP candidate. Going to be hard to overtake Judge as far as MVP goes. His batting averages are so much higher than Cal Raleigh, and Cal Raleigh plays an important position at the catcher, but he does DH a lot, so he's not catching every game. So I think that's going to be used against him a little bit. But who knows? Anything could happen. We could have voter fatigue. Judge might not get it, and it could be Cal's. But for the home run derby, it's exciting to have someone with 38 home runs in the home run derby. And when I look down the list, though, what I kind of noticed, those of us who follow baseball closely, sure, we know a lot of these names. But when I'm looking at like an O'Neal Cruz, only 16 home runs, a Matt Olson with the Braves, only 17 home runs, Jazz Chisholm, only 17 home runs for the Yankees. Those aren't your classic home run derby guys. Kind of reminds me of, the year Brandon Inge was in the home run derby, or and that was just kind of a local thing, but we get sometimes these guys who aren't home run hitters, and it's not what I like to see. I don't want the home run derby to turn into the dunk contest of the NBA, where the guys in the dunk contest are people that most casual fans don't know, and a lot of like pretty super NBA fans aren't that familiar with. It's not the days of Dominique Wilkins and stuff dunking and Jordan dunking, and I don't want to see that happen with the home run derby. So what I did is I pulled up the top 8 home run hitters in all of baseball to see who could we have gotten. So Cal Raleigh is the top of the leaderboard, 38 home runs, and we've got Aaron Judge at 35, Shohei with 32. I'm sure those two get tired of always being in the position of having to be the face of the league. But man, just think if we had Cal Raleigh, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and Eugenio Suarez, who has 31 home runs. Imagine if we had those 4 in the home run derby. 4 guys with over 30 home runs on the year. That'd be exciting. That would, I think, would get more people's attention. And you go further down the list, Kyle Schwarber, we got Suzuki, we got Crow Armstrong with the Cubs, a great season he's having. He's got 25 home runs. And then James Wood is number 8 on the leaderboard with 24 home runs. So only Cal Raleigh and James Wood are in the top 8 of Major League Baseball home runs that are in the home run derby. So you have 8 guys in the home run derby. It'd be great if it was just the top 8 home run hitters, or maybe 8 of the top 12. But there is a negative, right? People don't want to screw up their swing. Teams don't necessarily want their guys going there and getting exhausted, especially now that it's so timed. These guys are just swinging, swinging, swinging as fast as they can. There's that fear that, Cal Raleigh goes in, does his home run derby, hits 30 bombs in the home run derby, comes back in the second half, isn't the same guy. No one wants that. So for Judge and Ohtani, the big money contracts they have, those teams don't want to see them not perform in the second half. But I started thinking about, when I was a kid in the home run derbies. So I pulled up the late 90s home run derby, so 95 through 99, because in my mind, it was 8, 10 just absolute studs that all hit 50 home runs and they were in the home run derby. And there's a little bit of inaccuracy to that. So I looked it up, and there are huge names. 1995, 5 big names that pulled: Frank Thomas, Albert Bell, Mo Vaughn, Manny Ramirez, Sammy Sosa. So everyone that's, watching baseball now, unless they're a child, but everyone in their 20s, 30s, 40s, everyone knows Frank Thomas, Manny Ramirez, Sammy Sosa. But I started wondering, if I polled a bunch of 20-year-olds, would they remember Albert Bell and Mo Vaughn? Were those names just big in my head because they had a couple huge years when I was very impressionable? So maybe that year we only had, 3 guys that really stick out, but in my head we had 5. Whereas this year, I really wonder, when we look at the 2025 lineup in 2040, are we going to look at this lineup and say, oh my gosh, they had Cal Raleigh and O'Neal Cruz and James Wood and Brent Rooker all in the same home run derby? I just don't think so. I don't think that's going to, I think it's going to be more like the slam dunk contest when us guys we're not as familiar with. So 96, we had Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Jeff Bagwell, Joe Carter, and Gary Sheffield. So Bonds, McGwire, obviously huge names, controversial now for other reasons, but huge names. Jeff Bagwell, at the time when you were watching baseball, he was the man. Joe Carter, big home run in the World Series, so everyone knew him, and Gary Sheffield hit home runs as well. Probably should be in the Hall of Fame itself. So big names. I remember everyone that watched baseball in 1996 knew those 5 guys were big names. I don't know that everyone that's watching baseball really closely now in 2025 thinks the same way about the 8 names that are in the home run derby now. Jazz Chisholm, everyone knows mostly because he's a Yankee. Cal Raleigh, everyone knows this year for things he's earned. Crow Armstrong, great year. Everyone really knows him. Junior Caminero, pretty good year at 23 home runs, so that kind of makes sense there too. But some of these names, just are a little bit lower on the food chain than I think we might remember. 97, one of my favorite years, McGuire, Bagwell, Griffey, and Tomey. 98, Griffey, Tomey, Palmeiro, A-Rod, and McGuire. So really, that's 5 Hall of Fame guys. Now, I know Rafael Palmeiro's not in the Hall of Fame because of his performance in Congress. A-Rod's not in the Hall of Fame because poor guy just couldn't stop chasing the PEDs. But watching the home run derby in 1998 and those being 5 of the guys in the home run derby, that was a blast. Like for me, anything with Griffey, though, is going to just fly off the charts. Griffey's my favorite player of all time, not including people in Detroit sports. I always kind of lean towards the Detroit the Tigers, the Pistons, the Lions, the Red Wings of history. But if we take them out of the picture, man, Ken Griffey Jr. when I was a kid, I wanted to be him so bad. I was a left-handed hitter. I put my hat on backwards, try to have that sweet left-handed swing. I didn't. I did not have the Griffey swing. Man, I had the Griffey shoes. I was number 24 for a lot of the teams I played on. Just loved Griffey. So seeing that group in 98 and then in 99, Griffey, McGuire, Bagwell, and Sosa. Now, again, a lot of those guys were hitting home runs for very special reasons, allegedly. I'm not looking to get in trouble with anyone here, but I think when I read off a lot of the names in those 5 years, the late 90s kind of means something for baseball home run hitting, and there might be a reason for that. And there's maybe a reason these guys are only hitting 17, 20, 21 home runs now, and they're in the home run derby. Not everyone's pulling off the 38, 35, 32, 31. Understandable. But man, it was fun to watch the home run derby and see these guys put on a show. That was a lot of fun. So I hope it gets the same kind of audience this year. Money's obviously on Cal Raleigh. He's the betting favorite. Byron Buxton, I could see him being a bit of an underdog, kind of coming through. But Cal Raleigh, everyone's money's going to be on. For his sake, I just hope that it doesn't result in a bad second half. I would hate to see that because that's going to decrease chances of other guys doing the home run derby moving forward. Okay, as far as the All-Star game goes, I'm not going to read off the entire lineups because that would be super duper boring. But as far as starters go, for the AL, we've got Cal Raleigh, and this is all effective today or like late last night. So late Saturday night, anything I guess could change on Monday afternoon. There could be a change of these lineups. So we're looking at Cal Raleigh catching, Vlad Guerrero at first, Gleyber Torres, go Tigers. A second, Junior Caminero at third, Jacob Wilson at short, Judge, Green, and Javi Baez in the outfield. And then Ryan O'Hearn at the DH position. So a couple of things I want to point out is Cal, we've got, 38 home runs with an OPS of over 1,000, just having a heck of a year. Aaron Judge batting 358, 38 home runs, 81 RBIs. Gleyber Torres, OPS over 800. Riley Green, 23 home runs, 77 RBIs, batting average of 282. Now, he had a kind of a rough 10-day stretch here recently. He's hitting a few home runs over the last week and a half, but not a lot of other hits until the last couple games he has. But there was a week and a half there where I think his only hits were home runs. So batting average has dipped a little bit. But as I've said before, he's got a real shot at getting 280, 290. Maybe he gets hot and hits 300. But right around there with 40 home runs, well over 100 RBIs, that would be what a great season for a Detroit Tiger to have. I'd love to see it. Javi with a huge bounce back year, 272 with 10 home runs. So starting lineup looks great. I'm hoping they're all able to go. If they're all able to get 3, 4, 5 innings in. We got Tarek Skubal on the mound, announced yesterday as the starter for the All-Star game. So I'm excited to see that. I don't expect he'll pitch more than 1 inning. In the past, they'd throw 1 or 2, but with him having just thrown a few days before, Tigers are going to want him back on the mound as soon as they can. So he'll probably throw an inning, and there are just so many pitchers on this roster. There's like 14, 15 pitchers on the roster, so they're going to want to get as many of these guys in as they can, just depending on who threw Saturday, who threw Sunday, that type of thing. Couple bench guys on up. We'll go. Steve Kwan. Man, I always joke that if he only played the Tigers, I swear he'd be a Hall of Famer. I feel like he gets a hit. He's 3 for 4 every game. Every time he comes up, I'm thinking, oh gosh, here we go again. Another hit for Steve Kwan. So I was glad to see him on the All-Star team. Made me feel a little less crazy. He's batting 287 on the year. Swear I feel like he's batting 500 when he plays the Tigers. Other one, Alex Bregman back from injury. He missed a good chunk of time. He just came back here a couple days ago. He's batting 299 with an OPS of 935. So he was doing great before he went down with injury. I'm interested to see what happens with him if he gets in the game at all. Just coming back from an injury, you think he'd want the time off. Maybe he gets in there though, and I'm interested to see what happens with him and the Red Sox. Looked like the Red Sox might be kind of punting on this year. There was talk of Bregman getting traded, talk of Chapman getting traded. They had traded Devers, so they thought maybe they were just kind of moving on, but they've gotten a little hot. The Yankees have really kind of fallen off. And so that AL East is up for grabs. So maybe the Boston sits still and they don't move anybody. Of course, we got Zach McKinstry also added to that AL All-Star roster as well, which I'm really excited to see. As far as the pitching goes, Tigers, we've got Tarik Skubal, we've got Casey Mize, 9-3, just over 3 ERA now. Jacob deGrom, I was happy to see. He's had such a strange career, right? When he's on, he's unhittable. But injuries have just kept biting him. So I'm happy to see that he's been able to get a 9-2 record, 2.32 ERA, 113 strikeouts. He's racking up some innings. He's staying healthy, and he's still dominant. So good for him. I like to see. I don't like to see these guys get injured and fall off. I want to see them have nice, long careers. And speaking of Chapman, he's one of the relievers on the roster, 1.22 ERA. He's got 55 strikeouts over 37 innings pitched. So if the Red Sox did decide to become sellers at the deadline, definitely Chapman's the guy they'd want to move. And again, as a Tiger fan, interesting to see if they make a go for that. National League, as far as starters, you've got Will Smith catching, Freddie Freeman at first, Ketel Marte, Manny Machado, Francisco Lindor, Ronald Acuna, Pete Crow Armstrong, Kyle Tucker, and Shohei Ohtani as our DH, who's batting 275, 32 home runs, and 60 RBI. So Shohei's having a great year. NL roster looks pretty solid. Couple of the bench guys, Ellie De La Cruz, who's hitting 284, 25 stolen bases. He's one of those guys, when the Reds were in town it was probably a month ago now. I was so excited to see him. So I'm going to get to see him live. We went to 2 games that weekend. By the time the weekend was over, I did not want to see Ellie De La Cruz anymore. He was way too good that weekend. I think he hit a home run every game that weekend. Running all over the place. He DH one game, played the field the other game. Just a phenomenal baseball player. So exciting to watch unless he's playing against you. So I'm happy to see him get on there. And Eugenio Suarez with his 31 home runs getting the nod at third base as a reserve player. Good for him, former Tiger. I remember this, over 10 years ago now when he was a Tiger, thought, he could be one of our infielders of the future. And he went away and he's, had some good seasons. It's so strange to see now 10 years later, him with so much pop. And he was one name I saw getting floated as a possible third base target for the Tigers. A little bit of a homecoming, bring him in, get that pop. It's nice to have the home run hitters because in, September, October, it's hard to put together 3-4 hits in a row to get those runs. So if you have as many guys as you can to come in, one big pop, home run, we get the run. It'd be nice. But as I said earlier, Tigers are fine sitting with what they have at third base. We don't need to make any big splashy moves. Pitchers that are on, Paul Skeens is getting the start for the NL. Crazy 4-8 record with a 2.01 ERA. Poor guy gets no run support. There's been talk of the Pirates thinking about moving him already. That would be crazy. As a baseball fan, I just want to see him have a good career. I'd love to see it in the city that drafted him, but they're going to have to figure that out. Yamamoto, the 2.77 ERA. Record's almost near 500, though. Not what you'd expect with a team as good as the Dodgers and a pitcher as good as him. It's strange that he's racking up the losses the way he is. The other pitcher that really jumped out at me is Matthew Boyd, having a career year. Former 2-time Detroit Tiger. He's 10-3 this year, a 2.34 ERA. Just having a great year for the Cubs. Very happy for him. He always worked hard when he was the Tigers, and I know Tarik Skubal gives him a lot of credit for when Tarik Skubal was on the team and Matthew Boyd was on a second stint here, that Matthew Boyd really helped him out, really helped kind of get him in line and show him kind of the ropes as a young Detroit Tiger. So very appreciative of him. I'm excited for the game. Excited for the All-Star. I'm excited for the Home Run Derby on Monday. Excited for the All-Star game on Tuesday. Not excited for how long it's going to run. Whenever these games are on Fox at 8 o'clock, first pitch doesn't seem to be till 8:30. Game goes till midnight. They got to get that figured out. So I don't love that, but I am excited for the game. I'm really hoping the Tigers all get a chance to perform. They all get a chance to maybe do something. Every once in a while there's 1 or 2 guys that don't get to the game. So I hope that's not the case with like Zach or with Casey. But again, Casey throwing on Saturday, he might not be there anyway. But really excited for the All-Star game. Really excited for the Home Run Derby. If you're watching this before either of those and you're watching on YouTube, drop in the comments who you think is going to win the Home Run Derby and who you think is going to win the All-Star game. So I'm just going to go all chalk. I'm going to go Cal Raleigh wins the Home Run Derby, and I'm going to be a homer and say the American League wins the All-Star game. And I'm going to say Javi Baez is the MVP. How about that? So that would be fun. All right, so that's going to wrap up our second segment here as far as Baseball All-Star and Baseball Home Run Derby goes. When we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to do a little bit of hot topics. A few things I want to touch on real quickly. We're talking about the Pistons Summer League, talk about the new Netflix show, the Quarterback Season 2. and talk about a former Detroit Lion who has called it a career. So, again, you're listening to and watching the Motor City Sports Podcast, and we'll be back right after this break. Welcome back to the Motor City Sports Podcast. I am your host, Lee Mosherak, and again, thank you for being with me here as we are about to wrap up episode 4. So far today, we've touched on the week that was for the Detroit Tigers, 3-3 record so far. They are playing right now as I record this, so hopefully they get a win. Hopefully they get into the All-Star break on a winning note so they can have some fun on the break and then come out strong next week. We talked about the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game, how the Home Run Derby seems to be losing some of the big hitters when compared to those of the late 90s, but still has a chance to be great. I really expect Cal Raleigh to put on a show. Maybe Jazz Chisholm or one of these guys with only 17 and 16 home runs on the year surprises us and puts on a great show as well. And then the All-Star game coming up, we have 6 Detroit Tigers that are going to be there. Tarek Skubal making the start. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to that. So, few topics I want to touch on here in this final segment. The first one being Detroit Pistons started Summer League this week. Now, I've done a couple of videos talking about the draft, talking about how free agency might go and then how free agency did go. I've projected out kind of what the Detroit Pistons starting lineup and backup lineup looks like. And in all those videos, what I've kind of touched on is I think Ron Holland has a chance to really do something special. I've talked about him having a season under his belt. When he would get in for playing time last year, he looked great. He didn't look like the young kid that he was. And I think one of the benefits of the Malik Beasley situation is going to be Ron Holland getting more playing time. And so, yeah, we knew we were probably not going to re-sign all 3 of those guys that were coming up on free agency, and we didn't. We brought 2 of them back, or we got 2 in on a replacement, so with LeVert and Duncan Robinson, but we kind of sent 4 because Fontecchio went away when we got Robinson. Then we didn't get Hardaway or Schroeder or Beasley, and then we brought in Karis LeVert and drafted Chaz Lanier. But that's kind of 4 guys going away, only 3 guys coming in. So someone else on the roster is going to step up, and I think that's Ron Holland. And he started day 1 of that summer league, proving that's exactly what he intends to do. So the Pistons win, get a little bit of revenge against the Knicks. They win 104-86. They're actually playing this afternoon, Sunday afternoon, for game 2 of summer league. So I'm going to check in on that when I'm done recording. But Ron Holland, man, what a game. It looked like he was making a statement that maybe he's a little too good to be in summer league. But while he's there, he's going to show everyone how good he is. So 28 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, had that awesome follow-up dunk that was all over social media. Put on a show. Chaz Lanier's first chance to play with NBA talent. He gets 10 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds. I think he's going to grow into a guy that's going to help. He might be in that top 10. So the Pistons run deep. They've got, their starting 5, but there's 6, 7, 8 that get a lot of playing time. 9, 10, 11. You throw Marcus Sasser in there too. They can go 11 deep, including Chaz Lanier. So I really think that this summer is going to be a great opportunity for Ron and Chaz to really feel it out, get figured out their game. And I expect Ron Holland is to be a stud when the season gets going next year. And Chaz, after a year or 2, might do the same thing. Might take a year to get his feet wet, like with Ron, and then a year down the road, he's everything we could possibly hoped out of a second-round pick. The other thing I loved about that game is all the Pistons players that were in attendance. That whole baseline was just filled with Duran and Isaiah and Jidden and Cade. I'm trying to think who else was there. Unk was there. Tobias Harris was there. So ton of Pistons were there really supporting, hopping up, dapping up Holland on his big plays. I just love to see it. Again, there's so much chemistry there. And that's how I feel about a lot of the top teams this year. I haven't always felt like that. There have been seasons where it seemed like these guys didn't like each other. And this year with the 3 teams I follow the most, Lions, Tigers, and Pistons, admittedly, Red Wings a little shaky right now. And it's easy to say, yeah, when teams are winning, chemistry looks great. I think Jim Leland said that 15 years ago. Someone asked him about team chemistry, and he said, yeah, it's easy to have chemistry when you're winning. Something along those lines. But even when like the Lions were 9-8 that one year, a lot of chemistry on the team. The last couple of years of the Tigers, we've seen it seems like they enjoy each other, and it seems like they enjoy being in Detroit and being a part of Detroit. And that's how this Pistons team is. And so seeing all those guys in attendance, cheering on their guy, cheering on their guys, loved it. So that made me feel even better about what we have to look forward to in the next season of Detroit Pistons basketball. Other thing I want to touch on is this Netflix quarterback season 2. Have you been watching this? I have not checked in yet. fully plan on doing it this week with the All-Star game festivities being a couple days, but then really no baseball Wednesday or Thursday gives me a little bit of time to check up on some extra stuff. So I plan on kind of firing through some of this. Those of you who don't know, they followed Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, and Kirk Cousins through last year. It's actually the second time Kirk Cousins has done this. He's been in both seasons. And then some of the highlights we've seen is Kirk Cousins talking to Andy Dalton, what it was like for him to get benched and how that felt. And so kind of see the real side of these players. Some of the fun stuff is Joe Burrow running around introducing himself to everyone. I've seen a little bit of that. And then with Jared Goff, I've seen they talk a lot about how he felt with that trade and what it was like for him to get traded from LA to Detroit, and then what it was like to know how badly Detroit wanted him. And so I'm really excited to see some of that. Part of the reason why I've put it off is that I really don't want to relive that Washington game again. And some of the friends I have that have watched the series have said the series is great until it gets to the Washington game. So I'm not looking forward to that, but I am looking forward to checking out the show. Last thing, Ndamukong Suh retired. So former Detroit Lion. He was our number 2 pick in the 2010 draft. Played for 13 seasons. Played for the Dolphins, the Rams, the Bucks, and the Eagles as well. Has not played the last 2 seasons. Did win a Super Bowl with the Bucks. And then I think the number I saw was he started every game he played except for the last 8 he had with the Eagles. So phenomenal career for him. 3-time All-Pro. Probably really in line to be a Hall of Fame player. Now, interesting run he had with the Lions. He was on the Lions at some low times. Lions weren't great. I think there was one year in there the Lions were kind of fun to watch. Stafford and Megatron were on fire. But Suh always managed to find himself in the middle of stuff, whether it's kicking someone or tripping someone or pulling someone down. There was always some controversy around him. And at a time when the Lions weren't that great, it was pretty frustrating, I think, for a lot of us fans. There was the segment of fans that thought, come on, stop targeting Suh. The refs are looking for someone to blame. The refs just don't like him. And then there was a part of the fans that were saying, oh my gosh, Suh, stop getting in your own way. Stop causing trouble. Stop causing all these problems. It was just a tough time for Lions fans. And so it probably was good for Suh to get out of here, to go have time in other cities, to get himself a Super Bowl, just like Stafford going away, getting a Super Bowl, and then wrapping up his career. He hasn't played in 2 seasons. I think he's getting all of his ducks in a row. He's got a podcast. He's talking about money management and things like that. So he's got a few things lined up for his post-NFL career. And I'm sure he will continue to do great things. But that's our quick recap of the things outside of baseball, baseball being the big sport that's going on right now. Not too much Lions news going on, other than only a few weeks away from the first game. So they play July 31st. So we're just a few weeks out from true NFL football being on the field again. So it's going to make for a real fun August and September as the Lions are ramping up. Tigers are going to be in a playoff push in the playoffs, getting ready for Pistons and Red Wings. This is going to be great as the fall gets here. But as far as summer goes, your Detroit Tigers continue to be the best team in baseball. They're struggling maybe a little bit in the last week or so. That's fine. They'll get a nice rest over the All-Star break here, and they will come out next week on fire. So I want to thank all of you again for checking out this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, go ahead and check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. If you'd be so kind as to give us a subscribe everywhere you can. Give us 5 stars everywhere you can. Share this with your friends. Find us on Instagram at Motor City Sports Podcast, on X/Twitter at Motown Sports Pod. Find us where you can and follow along for the show. I think you're going to continue to have a good time. We're going to keep things fun. We're going to keep things positive, and we're going to keep moving forward. So you guys all have a great day. Enjoy the All-Star festivities this week, and we will see you next time on the Motor City Sports Podcast. Thanks, guys.